How's it going, everyone? Nick Templin here from Templin Scouting. I'm back to the channel with a new video, as one of my favorite days in the NHL season is fast approaching, the trade deadline. With a lot of notable names being thrown around this year, I wanted to go over some of them, talk about the teams that are rumored to be interested in them, look at some mock trades, and ultimately predict where they may end up. For this video, we will be going in depth about the top 10 players on TSN's trade bait board as of today, but at the end of the video we will also go over a few honorable mentions. So the first player on the TSN trade bait board is Nazem Kadri. In a year where a lot of teams are looking to add quality centermen, there will be a premium on them, as you will see with a few of the names we'll talk about today. Nazem Kadri is still an incredibly effective player who has been one of the lone bright spots on a struggling Calgary Flames team with 41 points in 59 games this season. We know he can be effective in the playoffs as well. At 35 years old, Kadri's timeline does not align with the Flames' timeline as they look to rebuild their roster. He has 4 more years on his deal at $7 million per season, so whoever acquires him should anticipate having him around for at least a couple more seasons after this one. The teams rumored to be most interested in acquiring his services are Colorado, Montreal, Los Angeles, and Utah. Other teams have been rumored to be interested as well, so he could end up in any number of places. I would expect there to be a bit of a bidding war for him by deadline day. Here are some mock trades that I created on Puckpedia's Puck GM feature for each of those rumored teams. Reminder that I myself am not a general manager, so you may not always agree with my valuations of players or the possible returns. I also do not necessarily believe that every return is going to be equal to the others. I think that some teams are going to be more aggressive on certain players, while other ones may not have the assets to make a proper play, so keep that in mind as going through. I'll also try to explain that a little bit as I go over each one of the offers. So starting it with Colorado, I have the return being Gavin Brindley, Mikhail Guyayev, and a first-round pick in 2027. So a couple of younger players, prospect-type players, and a first-round pick. I think something around that kind of valuation would be something that would entice the Flames to move Kadri. Then looking at the Montreal Canadiens, I have Kirby Dach, who could be a bit of a reclamation project. So long as he's able to stay healthy, I think he can be an incredibly effective player. So could be part of a potentially good return, as well as prospect Philip Mesar and a 2026 first-round draft pick. Then looking at the Kings are one of the teams that have been rumored for them, but I don't necessarily think they have the right assets to make a proper move. I could be wrong, though, of course. Maybe the Flames could covet a potential LA Kings prospect a little bit more than we realize. The ones that I have suggested are Kenny Connors and Alex Turcotte, who's not really a prospect anymore, more of a player who just hasn't lived up to his potential. But sometimes those guys are not the worst pieces to acquire in trades like this, because there's also the possibility that you can unlock a bit of their potential. And then we've got a Utah offer that involves Barrett Hayton, so former 5th overall pick from quite a ways back, who hasn't really hit his stride in the NHL. And then Gabe Smith, who has been a good prospect in the QMJHL, and a 2026 first-round draft pick. I don't necessarily know if Utah is going to be the most aggressive team on Kadri. I don't know that Kadri's timeline necessarily lines up with that of Utah's, as they are a bit of a younger core, so they might not necessarily be looking for a guy who is only going to give them, probably 3 more really good years. I think that there are probably other better fits for Utah to look into. So I don't necessarily think that they'll be a team that offers the most, but I do think they have a lot of assets that they could give up if they really were in on Nazem Kadri. Ultimately, I've chosen the Montreal Canadiens as the team that I expect Kadri to end up with. He has no problems playing in a major Canadian market, and he also plays the two-way physical style that the Canadiens love their centers to play. I also think that they are the team that can send the most realistic package. I think that a Kirby Dach type player would be incredibly attractive to Calgary in the position that they're in. He also fits their timeline well, and they can seamlessly transition to Michael Hage playing second-line center in a few years once the steam kind of runs out on Kadri. I think any number of teams would be in on Kadri's services, and I think finding a perfect fit for him has been difficult. I also like Carolina for him, but I have not been hearing much buzz about Carolina in particular being in on him, but you never know. They could always make a late push for him somewhere around the deadline. Also, I'm not an insider, so I don't exactly have all that kind of information, just kind of going off of what I'm seeing from the insiders online. The number 2 player on the board is Vincent Trocheck. The heat on him has ramped up since the Olympics, with Elliot Friedman reporting that his adaptability and willingness to play a role for the American team was attractive to a number of teams. He has 4 years remaining on his deal and has 38 points in 45 games this season. Minnesota has been a big name on him for a while Pittsburgh more recently joined the fray. Colorado, Carolina, and Detroit are also names circulating here, although I'm going to eliminate Colorado on this one. I think that it would be a bit of a premium with the center depth that they already have, so I think that they may focus their attentions to other players. Minnesota could get really aggressive now with the addition of Quinn Hughes. They need another top 6 center, and we know how much Bill Guerin loves this player. I think the fit is there for sure, and I have them moving Trent in for cap reasons, as he does not have trade protection. Riley Heidt is a prospect from a recent draft that I was a fan of, and the Rangers are looking to restock the cupboard with prospects. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh could send Kevin Hayes back to the team he entered into the league with, as he has struggled to get into the lineup this year, and he could benefit from regular playing time elsewhere to try and earn a contract for next season. St. Ivany is a solid right-handed defenseman that could prove useful as the Rangers look to retool their defense, and Cale Dach is a solid WHL prospect playing in Calgary. The Canes, who previously had Trocheck, are familiar with him. I think he would be a good fit, and they could potentially offer Kotkaniemi, a prospect, and a pick for him. I don't believe he's their top target, but he could quickly rise on their list, so they could get more aggressive with the offer. Yzerman apparently tried hard to sign Trocheck years ago, so we know he likes the player, and he would be a boost for the Detroit top 6. There is word, however, that they are more aggressively pursuing a different option. I'm picking Minnesota for his landing spot. I think he wants to reunite with his Team USA pals Hughes, Faber, Boldy, and Bill Guerin, and I could see them being much more aggressive in their final offer than my mock trade, with a number of other interesting prospects like Rieger Lorenz or even Charlie Stramel. If the bidding war gets that far, I don't think it will. Blake Coleman sits 3rd on the trade bait board, a solid aging two-way forward who provides depth scoring and maximum effort, bringing previous Stanley Cup experience as well. He will be coveted for the right price. 21 points in 47 games this year for the Flames, and he also kills penalties. Tampa has been rumored to be interested in a reunion, while Dallas has also been circling on this Texas-born NHLer. Carolina and Montreal have also been mentioned in connection with him. For Tampa, it was tricky to find a way to make this work in their current salary structure. I typically try to avoid retaining salary on players with more than a year remaining on their deals. However, Calgary looks poised to be a team that will struggle to reach the cap floor next season, so if it increases the value of the deal, I can see them adding some retention. The return, I have Gonsalves is a 25-year-old depth piece in Tampa, so I could see some value in him being part of the return, aside from just helping the financials work. In fact, he has only recorded one less point than Coleman this year, albeit in 7 more games played. Ultimately, I think this trade will restrain Tampa too much against the cap, so I'm not sure it's in their best interest. They also have seen amazing depth internally this year and may not want to mess with a good thing right now. I love the fit for Coleman in Dallas, with the unfortunate circumstance of Seguin likely being out for the season, and that will likely be announced soon. That does leave Dallas with some options to improve their roster with some cap relief. They are top-heavy right now and need to add some pieces that will help them go toe-to-toe with the likes of Minnesota and then potentially Colorado after that. Plus, he's from Texas, so I like the storyline there. Meanwhile, I imagine Montreal and Carolina could make offers for Coleman as well, but I can see Calgary trying to do right by him and sending him to his preferred destination. And if Montreal does get Kadri, they would probably be backing off any other significant cap hits like this one. So with that being said, I'm going with Dallas as the Coleman destination. It feels like a match made in heaven to me. I can see him slotting to various spots in the top 9, mainly the middle 6. Now on to the most valuable name on the list, Robert Thomas. Despite a slower year that has seen him miss time with injury, Robert Thomas is still a very strong player who could have easily been in conversations for the Canadian Olympic team this season. The Blues have stated that they do not feel like they have to trade Thomas, but if the right offer comes up, they will consider it. Utah, Boston, Montreal, and Detroit have been the main teams that have been linked with Robert Thomas. Utah is a team I could see getting very aggressive with an offer here, as they have a lot of assets worth using, and Thomas fits the core age of their roster very well. 2 first-round picks and 2 high-end prospects would be the way to get the conversation started here. Baudouin is going to be a highly coveted prospect for the way he plays the game, well-rounded, physical, great on face-offs, with good offense to his game as well. And Lamoureux is a towering, albeit injury-prone defenseman who has shown good flashes when healthy. And 2 unprotected first-round picks could entice St. Louis to move a player they certainly do not need to move. I expect Boston to make a major play on Thomas as well. They would have to move some money out, so Middlestat can make some sense. They also could move Poitras and Lowry to up the ante, with Fabien Lysell, who is still not boomed, as another piece. Montreal could also offer a package including Doc and Reinbacher, who I still expect to be a very good NHL defenseman in a few years. Detroit can offer some recent first-round picks as well as 2 draft picks of their own. In the end, I do not anticipate that the Blues will find the right deal to move Thomas right now. They may revisit this in the summer, but there's no reason to rush making a deal before the deadline. Unlike some of the other aging players or expiring contracts, his value will not go down between now and the draft. Also, unless Thomas explicitly asks for a trade, I do not think they should move him. Let a dry spell just be a dry spell and see what you have in him next year. They will get the chance to draft high this year, and they have some young talent coming, so I think they just hold on for now. Tyler Myers' trade talks ramped up quickly last week when it was announced that he was healthy scratch for trade reasons. It was then rumored that they had an offer in place from Detroit, but Myers had not waived his no-move clause to make the move official. Speculation came that Myers wanted to consider his options before moving his family mid-season, so I do think that Detroit is still on the table for Myers, should he have a change of heart later this week. I also have heard Dallas and Anaheim in conversations about Myers. The towering defenseman offers value as a veteran net front mover who could be coveted as a depth piece in the playoffs. I did not hear the rumored offer Detroit had on the table for Myers, so I'm not exactly sure what it was, but I could see Vancouver being interested in Bernard Docker as a depth piece to hold a spot on the right side for the rest of the season, with the possibility of bringing him back if he flashes value for them. The main focus will just be to get the draft picks for Myers. I think deal 2 is a win-win for Dallas and Vancouver, as Dallas can add Myers while shedding Lyubushkin, who can just hold a roster spot for Vancouver as they navigate their rebuild. I do not think that Anaheim will be as desperate for Myers' services, as they have gotten good depth on the right side from Drew Hellison, but they could covet Myers' net front abilities and physicality, much like Gudas and Trouba. Ultimately, I think Dallas would be the best fit, and Myers could be more easily swayed to waive for a contender of that caliber. Justin Falk has been a difficult one for me to find a match for, although I do believe one exists. Up until yesterday, Edmonton was heavily linked with Falk. However, with the addition of Connor Murphy, I cannot imagine that a Falk trade is still in the cards for them. It would have been a challenging one to facilitate with the contract value and Edmonton's cap restraints. Ottawa's a name that I've heard, however, I cannot imagine that with a 15-team no-trade list that Ottawa would be one of his desired locations. Boston has also been rumored to be interested. I also wonder if a Carolina reunion could be possible, however, it isn't something that I've necessarily heard. I have a listed return from Ottawa and a listed return from Boston. Just going over the Ottawa one, getting Nick Jensen, so contract and return to make the money work. Arthur Kaliev, who has been amazing in the American Hockey League this year and is still only 24 years old, and a 2027 second-round draft pick. But then I like the middle stat return for St. Louis a little bit more, I think, and it makes sense contract-wise for Boston. Just to move Middlestad out to bring in a upgrade on the right side of the defense. So I have chosen Boston as Falk's predicted landing spot. Bobby McMann is one of the more interesting names to look out for. With a 1.35 average annual value contract with only a year left, virtually anyone could find a way to fit him in. On pace for 26 goals and over 40 points with speed and physicality, he makes for a solid addition to a contender. Edmonton, LA, and Colorado have been the most rumored teams for him. I got creative with the Edmonton offer, as they have been rumored to be interested in Ekman-Larsson as well. While the addition of Murphy means they likely no longer have to address the defense, I wanted to see if they still could find a way to make this work. This makes for a very interesting deal, and one I'm not sure everyone will agree with, and that's fine. The Oilers hardly need another puck-moving defenseman. However, I think that back to the smaller role that Ekman-Larsson played with the Panthers, and I can't help but think that it would be a similar role with Edmonton. With 50% retention on McMahon, who only has this season remaining on his contract, I was able to make the money fit according to PuckGM on Puckpedia. The return would be Andrew Mangiapane and Ty Emberson, who both have another year remaining on their deals and could work as depth pieces in Toronto. They would also get Edmonton's 2027 first-round draft pick. I think the consensus among Toronto fans is that they want to receive more for these two assets, and I get it. Maybe this isn't quite the right deal, but I do think that there's a concept there that could be reworked into something. Also, just to touch on what Bobby McMann would offer for Edmonton, I think that he offers really good middle six support, somebody who could potentially be a good line mate for Draisaitl, and then also somebody who gives you penalty killing and just overall just good pace of play in the playoffs. As for LA, I think that this would be a bit of a surplus, as I don't think McMahon offers much of a big difference than what they already have in Trevor Moore, just a fast, physical winger in the middle six. Even if McMahon has been producing more than Trevor Moore has this year. With that being said, the market on wingers has been a bit soft this year, and they need players to fill the spot left by Fiala, so I would understand them making this move. Colorado would also likely be interested just because of the contract value, although I can't see them being able to outpace an Edmonton return here. I've chosen Edmonton as his destination, with or without Ekman-Larsson being involved. Being able to laterally move Mangiapane out for a cheaper and better option in the middle six is exactly the move the Oilers need to make, aside from goaltending, which will be harder to fix. As the Canucks attempt to tear things down and start over, Elias Pettersson's name has been in rumors for quite a while. I was unsure if Pettersson would gain much traction through the combination of his struggles, the cost and length of his contract, and the fact that he has a full no-move clause, allowing him to essentially pick his destination. However, it is important to remember that he was a 100-point player only a few seasons ago. It's possible that his struggles could be attributed to the state of the Canucks, so I can see why a team may take a swing on him right now. I could also see this being a move that waits until the offseason to happen. However, things have reportedly heated up on this front recently. Teams rumored to be interested include Detroit, LA, and Carolina. From Detroit, I have Rasmussen, Danielson, and a first and third round pick as the return. I think Detroit can afford to be this aggressive and risky with Pettersson. If he is the Pettersson of old when he arrives, he can instantly launch Detroit into being a contender. It's a lot to pay, and maybe it could be too much, but Vancouver is not forced to deal Pettersson, so if someone really wants him, they will have to pay up a little, and it will be smart of Vancouver to do all they can to recoup assets for the rebuild, especially when dealing Pettersson. Whether or not Pettersson would waive his no-move clause for some of these teams remains to be seen. However, I could see him being interested in a change of scenery, especially to a team competing for the playoffs, and a team on the rise like Detroit. I don't think LA has the assets to be in play for a big fish like Pettersson. If the market is quiet, maybe Vancouver could settle for an offer like this if they truly feel like the relationship with Pettersson has been severed. But aside from the rumors, I can't imagine LA is really in play. Carolina certainly could be if they like Pettersson enough. Kotkaniemi provides a long-term third-line center option. Ryabkin is an impressive prospect who should have gone higher in the draft this past year. kind of a similar story to Atu Ratu not too long ago. And Legault is a young defenseman that saw NHL time this season due to injuries on Carolina's back end. Carolina has the assets to be more aggressive than this if they choose to be, but Pettersson doesn't feel like the best fit in Carolina to me. I've chosen Detroit for Pettersson. Again, if not for the recent rumors that Detroit really likes Pettersson, I don't think I would have predicted him to leave Vancouver at the deadline. The offer will have to be pretty sweet, I think, to make it happen. Otherwise, we'll be revisiting this one in June. Detroit can get this done if they want to, though, so I think it'll be a matter of desire. But they could use a boost like this to go on their first playoff run since 2016. Evander Kane is a textbook retained salary situation with a lot of teams interested in his depth, scoring, and physicality. Tampa, Dallas, and Carolina have all been rumored to be interested in his services. I have Kane at 50% retention on the first two mock trades. Carolina could ask for salary retention, however, they do have enough cap space to take the full contract if they choose to. Nothing too fancy here, just looking to acquire draft picks for an expiring asset. Although I think it would be fun for Vancouver to acquire the rights to former 7th round pick and son of former Canuck Mikael Samuelsson from Dallas. Ultimately, I like the fit with Tampa the best. They play a physical brand, and as far as fighters go, he's a better option to have on the roster every night than guys like Sabrin and Douglas. I could even see him being a second unit power play option, just as a net front pest. The final member of the TSN top 10 list is Dougie Hamilton. With New Jersey's struggles and Hamilton's struggles to go along with the emergence of Nemec, a Dougie Hamilton move feels all but inevitable, and I was not anticipating that at the start of the year. This doesn't feel like a move that the Devils have to make right now, so I could see them waiting until the offseason to do it. However, doing so could allow New Jersey to fast-track their retool for next season by moving cap and gaining some younger assets. San Jose had reportedly asked about Hamilton in the offseason, so they are likely still interested. I had heard Toronto earlier in the season, however, their recent struggles makes them less likely at the moment. But if they do see it as a move for next season, I think they could still look into it. And Carolina could see a reunion as well, as they could definitely use a boost in offense from their back end. San Jose can offer Edmonton's first-round pick for this year, as well as solid young prospect Cameron Lund and Jack Thompson, a right defenseman who has seen some NHL play with San Jose and Tampa Bay over the last few years. Toronto can offer multiple second-round picks, as well as roster players Carlo and Waugh, who have not worked out in Toronto super well, but still have upside as depth players. Whereas Carolina could offer a few prospects and their 2027 first-round pick. In this case, I have Artemonov, a Russian prospect that I really liked in his draft year, and Russian D-man Kurban Limatov. Reportedly, talks stalled in the offseason because Dougie wouldn't waive his no-move clause to go to San Jose. I think this season could have changed his mind. San Jose is on a new trajectory, being launched by the young phenom Macklin Celebrini. I could certainly see Dougie wanting to wait things out in New Jersey as well, as all the pieces feel like they're close to being in place there. But if he does agree to leave, this should be his desired destination. I've also listed some other notable names to look out for here in places I believe they could end up. So starting with Patrick Laine, I have him going to the Rangers. I think that this is an interesting move for the Rangers, just to bring in some talent to potentially have for next season. It would be a good kind of trial run for Patrick Laine to see what he's got in the tank after injury, and to see if he could be a good fit in New York as they try to retool their team. I think Jordan Binnington to Montreal makes a lot of sense because Montreal is looking for an upgrade in goal. I know it hasn't been the best season for Binnington, but we did just see him play pretty well at the Olympics, so it is possible that he could rise to the occasion in a different market. Connor Garland to Ottawa is definitely one to keep an eye on. I don't necessarily think Garland is a likely trade candidate, but I think that he's the exact type of guy that a team like Ottawa is looking at. With Ottawa's current situation, they're not necessarily wanting rental players because they're not really sure if they're going to make the playoffs at this stage or not. But looking at guys who can be core guys for the long term, that's kind of more what they're looking at. And Garland just signed an extension with Vancouver at the start of the season that it looks like he may never actually see from Vancouver because they have been rumored to potentially move off of him, and Ottawa has also been rumored to have been scouting a fair bit of Vancouver this season, and I think that Garland could be a good fit for their style of play as well. Logan Stanley to Detroit. If they do miss out on Tyler Myers, they may look to get another large defenseman, and Logan Stanley has definitely been a name on the market for sure. Ilya Mikheyev as well to Detroit, I think, is a good potential depth winger that they could use on either the left or right side. Good penalty killer, good pacey player. So somebody that just kind of adds a little bit more depth for their playoff run. Andrew Peeke potentially as a right defense depth option in Anaheim could also be an interesting move for them. Then we've got Braden Shen and Luke Shen both ending up in Utah. I think that whoever does try to acquire either of those players, I think that they should try and acquire both of them since they're both available on the market right now. I think that Braden Shen in Utah is a good move for them because I don't think they'd have to pay too much for his services at the moment. His value is definitely diminished a fair bit, but he does add some good depth and veteran play to a team that doesn't have a lot of that right now. Pretty good temporary fit, I think, in the middle of their lineup there. Scott Lawton to Colorado, I think, is a good move. I think that Colorado could just definitely bolster their depth a little bit, and Lawton could be a good fourth-line center for them. I like Michael Bunting to Florida. I know Florida's not necessarily a contender this year, and they don't have a lot of assets to move as well, so they might be a pretty quiet team at the deadline, but I do like Bunting, even though he's an expiring contract, because he definitely plays the Florida style of hockey. He is a hard-nosed player, definitely a power forward through and through, with some offensive upside. So I could see them bringing him in and then seeing if he's a fit and signing an extension for him as well to kind of help out their depth going into next season. Or potentially things could really turn around for Florida and they could go on a run to make it back into the playoffs, in which case he'd be a good playoff player for them as well. Then we've got Zach Whitecloud, who was acquired previously by Calgary earlier this season in the Rasmus Anderson deal. Whitecloud could potentially stick around in Calgary if he's a guy they really like, but I also think that a team looking for a right-handed defenseman will definitely be calling about him, and I think he would be a good addition in Buffalo. We've got Jason Dickinson, who's a good third-line defensive centerman from Chicago. I think that he could end up being a guy that LA could look at. He won't cost as much as some of the bigger names on the market, but I think he'll provide really good depth. Then there's Eric Holla from Nashville on an expiring deal. I think Pittsburgh could be a good fit for him. I know Kindle's been a really good third-line center for them, but this gives them the flexibility to potentially move Kindle to the wing and let Holla, the more kind of veteran player, take the center role there. But I don't necessarily think this is something they need to do. It's just something that they could kind of help their line out with a little bit. And then Teddy Bluger to Seattle. I think that he's obviously been on a bit of a strong start since coming back from injury. He's got, I think, 8 points in 11 games this year. So a bit of a offensive output right now from Teddy Bluger that a team can kind of maximize on. But I think he's the best fit as a fourth-line center. And then I'm going to talk about some notable players that I'm not expecting to move. So as previously mentioned, I don't think that Robert Thomas is going to be on the move. I just don't think that makes sense for St. Louis right now. Nashville, Ryan O'Reilly. It doesn't really sound like Nashville or Ryan O'Reilly wants to move on from the current situation. But I do think that that's somebody to keep an eye on more for the offseason. I think Nashville right now still being in the hunt. You'll see with Steven Stamkos here as well. I don't think they're going to move him. The fact that they still have a shot at making the playoffs this year, they're probably going to be pretty quiet on selling. I did have them trading Eric Holla because he's an expiring player and probably not somebody that they're going to plan on having around long term anyways, but with Ryan O'Reilly and Steven Stamkos still being on contract for another few years, I think that this isn't something that they have to facilitate at the moment. Rasmus Ristolainen, I think, is a bit of an awkward fit for a lot of teams. He's making a fair bit of money and still has another year left on his deal, so I don't necessarily think that there's going to be a lot of interest on him right now, but I do think that going into the off season there will likely be a bit more interest. Mackenzie Weegar, I definitely could see him going, but it's going to be really up to him with I forget if he's a no trade or full no move, but I think the options for where he could go are fairly limited. I do like Ottawa as a potential option for him, but I think if Ottawa splashes on a guy like Garland, then it makes it a little bit more complicated for them to then also go out and get Mackenzie Weegar right now. Again, another guy that we may revisit kind of in the offseason. DeBrusk as well. I mean, he's a guy with a fair bit of trade protection, so it would take a very specific team and deal to get anything done there. Jonathan Marchessault, I think just there's not enough value there right now. He's been struggling on a fairly expensive deal that's going to take him until I think he's 37 or 38 years old. So I don't think that a move for him is in the cards right now. Charlie Coyle has been really heating up lately as the Columbus Blue Jackets make a push to try and get back into a playoff spot. So I think between him and Boone Jenner, Columbus isn't going to be looking to move any of their expiring contracts right now. They're going to try and go all in on making it this year. Sergei Bobrovsky, I just don't see Florida moving him. Aside from just the complications of the contract, I think that they want to do right by their goaltender that won them 2 Stanley Cups. I don't think Bobrovsky's wanting to move right now, so I don't think that it would be in Florida's best interest to do that to him. And I think that he will probably resign for a fairly team-friendly deal in the offseason, which will open up a fair bit of cap space for them. Jesper Wallstedt, I've never really understood the trade buzz on him. I know that Minnesota has 2 really good goaltenders right now, but I don't think that because they're both locked up long term into fairly reasonable deals, I don't think that they're necessarily in a rush to move Wallstedt unless they get a pretty significant upgrade. But if you look at some of the mock trades that people put out there for Jesper Wallstedt, I mean, the desired players that they would want in exchange for a guy like Wallstedt just aren't on the market right now. So I think that that's something maybe they could revisit at the draft, but personally I think Minnesota shouldn't move Wallstedt. I think that in 5 years' time we'll be talking about him as one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. Potentially they could be more interested in moving Philip Gustafsson, but once again I don't think there's any rush on that. There's been people saying that they think Morgan Riley is going to get traded. I don't think that's a thing that's going to happen right now. Again, I think that's another player that we could look at in the offseason as a potential guy who gets traded. Brock Besser, I don't think is going to get traded. I mean, he gets talked about every single year in trade discussions around the deadline, and nothing's ever happened. And now that he has his long-term extension and trade protection, I think it's even less likely to happen. Alex Tuch is going to stick around in Buffalo because they are currently looking to go on a playoff run. And Jamie Alexiak, I don't think is going to move on. I think it would be reasonable if he did, but I think with Seattle still being very much in contention for the playoffs, he's definitely not a guy that they should feel like they have to move on from right now.